I am a huge Zelda fan, and I played Age of Calamity and enjoyed the heck out of that game. Over 100 hours into Age of Calamity did I put. And now we have here Age of Imprisonment, another canonical story, reliving the events of Tears of the Kingdom, except now we can get to see exactly what happened in the past with the Imprisoning War. Now, the biggest feature here has to be that you get to play as Rauru, Sonia, Zelda, and all of the sages that we were able to see within Tears of the Kingdom, but didn't learn hardly anything about. And that was one of the biggest critiques of Tears of the Kingdom, was just not knowing anything about these characters or anything about the past, and constantly being told about it but never being shown what in the world was going on there. And I wonder if they knew during development that this would be a game that they wanted to make to expound upon that, so they decided not to really share anything with us. But in the Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase that we just got a couple days ago, Age of Imprisonment got a brand new trailer that reveals so much more than its runtime would have you believe. This trailer is jam-packed with stuff about this game, and I am here to break down some of this and also spend a little bit of time talking about the biggest flaw with this game's marketing and what in the world is going on with this game's release date. So I'm going to start right here from the beginning. We're going to rewatch this trailer together. This very first shot here shows what I believe is Hyrule Castle in its very first form. This is what Hyrule Castle looked like way back in the past, and now we can see Zelda and Sonia walking together, building their relationship, becoming closer, becoming more like a mother and a daughter, and we eventually will see that relationship come to a unfortunate end with Sonia there in the later part of this game. Spoilers for Tears of the Kingdom, but it's been a couple years. And hopefully this is proof that we will see even more character development and relationship development than what we saw in Tears of the Kingdom, because those memories do not do a whole lot to develop these characters and develop the relationships between them. Then we get to see a bunch of clips of Rauru, and here we see him holding on to the top of the sage helmet in which he is presumably giving the Goron Sage. What that tells me is that this game is going to dive even deeper into what these sages are like, what their personalities are, who they are as characters, and Rauru getting to pick between all of them. And I'm sure we're not going to see the deciding process. I'm sure he's not going to be like, oh, which one do we want here? I bet he already has all of them pre-selected and is going to pick all of them on screen for us, and we're going to see them even more developed in this game. And that is very similar to Breath of the Wild's DLC, in which we got to see Zelda going to select all of the champions and asking them in person whether or not they would accept the blue royal garb of the champions that she handmade for all of them. In the next scene, we see Rauru and Sonia together. They are holding hands, and he is using both of his hands and the light powers within them to perform what I am assuming is some sort of prayer or ceremony that is going to be explained a lot more in detail in the game. They are both looking at something, and it seems as though they're trying to use their powers to make something happen in front of them that is just off the screen for us, and we can see Zelda in the background watching them in her garb from Tears of the Kingdom. So this is very early on. It's one of the first things that we see within this game's storyline, probably. Now, the weird thing is, if it were some sort of prayer, I feel like their eyes would be closed, but they're not. Sonia's powers are not being activated because it would have some sort of yellow light tint to it, and that is not the case. We just see both of Raru's hands lighting up, so I am not exactly sure what is going on here, but they're both looking forward. This is early in the game due to Zelda's clothes, and we will see what it means more when we get other trailers or when we get to play the game ourselves. Then we get a very interesting first-person perspective from a bunch of Gloom attacking Hylians and Rauru. And as we can see the camera panning around Rauru and these Hylians here, we can see the Gloom figures in the background, and they are all very odd-looking and nothing like what we have seen in Tears of the Kingdom. These are brand new Gloom monsters, and they take form, and this is the first time we have seen Gloom take any sort of cognizant form outside of Ganondorf's powers. This is a very similar thing that happened in Age of Calamity, in which we got a bunch of brand new malice-filled enemies that were really just the same enemies we'd seen before, but powered up with malice. But this is very different because these are brand new. We have not seen this in Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild. These are cognizant monsters that were made exclusively out of Gloom. They are not inhabiting any sort of Bokoblin or Moblin or any other enemy. It's just Gloom. The only thing we've seen even close to this is the cognizant hands that attack you in Tears of the Kingdom. Pretty much out of nowhere, the hands will come and try to attack you, and this is not even like that. It's not at all like that. They're very different. And I guess now that I'm thinking about it, also Ganondorf has a Gloom form in which he will fight you after you defeat those hands. So my guess is these Gloom figures are just another being of Ganondorf, another extension of his cognition and what he wants, which is to kill all Hylians and to kill everything in his way. Another very interesting detail from this clip is to see Raru's Sword of Light. This looks like it was powered up specifically by Sonya, given to him using the Zonai technology, because the actual shaft of this weapon is Zonai technology. But the blade itself is unique to any experience we have seen in Tears of the Kingdom before. It is empowered and infused with light, and that seems to be Sonya's power. We know from Tears of the Kingdom you can defeat Gloom enemies with regular weapons, but I'm sure this light gives it much bigger of a buff. Because of course, light conquers darkness, light conquers malice and gloom in these games. Now what I really want to comment here is on the first person perspective. How odd that is, and what that really implies is that there's probably some sort of character that we as the player are taking control of their vision, seeing what they see and why it is circling Raru like that, and why we can see it in first person attacking these Hylians. That tells me that we are taking the eyes of some sort of new enemy, some enemy that takes first-person perspective that we're going to have to eventually defeat. And this is probably also footage from the early game, so I don't know if it's going to be some brand new character that's going to be a big part of the storyline, or if it's just one of the basic enemies and this is just a very cool camera maneuver. But it is obviously worth noting that that first-person perspective does indicate some sort of cognizant being behind all of this Gloom attack. Moving forward, we can see what I only can assume is the iteration of Goron City in the past. This is what Goron City probably looked like way long ago, and the blood moon is shining bright red right behind it. A big difference from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is that we can just very clearly see the Zonai influence on Goron City's doorway here. We can see the technology on front of it, the little symbols that they use, the way it's all being held together. It just looks very Zonai-like, and that shows how influential King Robber was back in his time. Next here we see a clip of Sonya sitting in a field of Sundelions, and if you know Tears of the Kingdom, you will know that these Sundelions are the only thing that you can cook up with different meats and different types of food to help take away the damage that the Gloom will do to you. So if you're in the depths and you get hit by a Gloom enemy, you will lose that heart permanently until you go back up to the surface. But if you have food cooked with Sundelions, you are able to heal yourself down in the depths. This clip shows Sonya trying to probably harvest a lot of these Sundelions, trying to grow it, and it shows that either that they really are intentional at growing these, knowing that Gloom is a thing, or they are just going out of their way to make sure that these are prepared for their soldiers, that they're able to heal the Hylians in however they can. This is a very interesting piece of foreshadowing, in my opinion, to see the petals of these Sundelions flying off into the distance. So many of them are losing their petals and flying away, and that tells me that the Gloom is going to take over. It's foreshadowing. Not even these flowers can stop what is to come, and we know exactly what will happen. They will not succeed. Then we see Malice in the darkness actually surging as if it were some sort of fire, and then we get a bunch of clips of new enemies, Lynels, Gleox, all of these different types of enemies. Then we see the Goron Sage doing something extremely interesting and has a lot of gameplay implications. This Goron Sage is using his powers that Daruk had in Breath of the Wild to shield himself, something that Yunobo also has in Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, and he is using that shield not only for himself, but he is transferring it to the Rito Sage for him to use his ability. And this comes right after he is able to use that secret stone. That secret stone lights up as he is using that power, so it means that it's probably only possible to transfer his power or to give that power to someone else through the means of the secret stone. And as we see this Rito Sage here, we can also see him using a fire dispenser emitter from the Tears of the Kingdom base game. Next we see a person walking with two Hylian guards behind them, and this person then is preceded by a clip of Zelda following Rauru and Sonya through the depths. Now both of them look like they are both in the depths, and at first glance you would assume this is Zelda walking similarly like Zelda was walking in the second clip, but this is not Zelda. At closer inspection you can definitely see this is a different person. The skin tone is completely different, and as I'm looking here, I also thought at first it could be the Gerudo Sage, but it is not the Gerudo Sage. It is not. It can't be, because look at the difference in skin tone between those two. And even though the skin tone could just be a weird lighting effect, the outfit is completely different as well. On this one here with this video, we can see the dress is much longer and they're not wearing any shoes, whoever this person is. And the Gerudo Sage is definitely wearing shoes, and the skirt is much shorter. We do not know at all who this could be, and I was wondering if this was maybe the hero that we get to see in Tears of the Kingdom with that very odd outfit that he gets, Link does, and I just don't know if this is an example of that, because I think that one is probably a male, but I could be wrong. That could just be something totally different, but those outfits don't even match as well. I just don't know who this could be. It's a mystery character. And at the very beginning of this clip, I am slowing this down to 1% here. It seems like it's not moving, but I promise you it is. You can see there is light in this background here. In the foreground, wherever the camera is placed, we cannot see it, but behind the camera, there is light. And it makes me think that the person who is walking towards this light either just threw fire at them, or there is gloom, or there is a battle going on between two characters, and this character is walking up to that battle. Maybe it's even like a spar. But for whatever reason, there is light, and this character is walking up to the light, and it appears that we are deep in the depths. So I don't know what that means, but hey, it is crazy. Then we see that same clip of Zelda walking right behind Rauru, except she is also with Minoru. So for whatever reason, Minoru and Rauru are taking Zelda down to the depths to probably search for some sort of material, maybe even some Zonite, to help build up the construct that Minoru is working on. We then see Rauru and Zelda interlock hands similarly to how they did with Sonia earlier, and that light power is now being displayed, and we can see them attacking all of these different bokoblins with that light power. We saw in Tears of the Kingdom a cutscene in which there were a ton of Moldugas that were getting ready to overcome the Kingdom of Hyrule, and Rauru was able to stand there with his powers, and Zelda and Sonia were able to give him their light powers and their time powers to give a weird, crazy blast that wiped out all the Moldugas. And so this reminds me very much of that, because Rauru probably cannot produce this type of light time power on his own, but he is able to mimic it and produce it as long as he is holding hands with those same users. Then we see Minoru for the second time in this trailer summon 4 different constructs that are then able to destroy a bunch of constructs, which is very interesting to me. It's using Zonai technology against Zonai technology, so why are we attacking Zonai here? Is this some sort of sparring ground, or did they somehow turn evil on us? Are we turning against us, similarly to how the Sheikah technology and the Guardians turned against us? It would certainly be a little poetic for Ganon to have initially been able to turn all of the Zonai technology against the Zonai people, and then for him later on to turn all of the Sheikah technology against the Sheikah people. Then we see here with Rauru and Sonia together doing some sort of special animation attack. Then we see Zelda and the Zora Sage together doing another animation. Then we get a close-up on this moblin here that is screaming into the sky. Then I see a little bit more proof to my theory that Rauru cannot produce this power of light all on his own, because we have that aforementioned staff and the Sonia light power at the very tip of that staff, and we can see him using light powers. So I wonder if that power that is able to be channeled through him comes directly from that staff and he just wouldn't be able to use it without it, or if I am completely and totally over analyzing this. Then we see Zelda using her recall powers rather than the powers of stasis like we saw in Age of Calamity and Breath of the Wild. She takes the moblin explosive barrel that is thrown right at her, and she is able to reverse it back to them, and it blows up the entire company of moblins and bokoblins. Then we get a very, very, very fascinating clip here of the Gerudo Sage using both the Daybreak weapon and shield that we are able to see Urbosa use and pass along to Link in Breath of the Wild. These weapons must have been passed on for years and years and years within the Gerudo tribe, but we know this is so fascinating, especially because Ganon is a Gerudo, and he was probably the king, and is the king of the Gerudo in this game. Before he turns into the big villain and takes over the world and really makes a mess of everything, he is the king of the Gerudo, and the Gerudo people have to grapple with that, and that is why they do not allow men within their town. But every once in a while, a man is born to them and he must become their king. And so this is also a very unique cutscene here, because Rauru is fighting this Gerudo Sage, and I don't know if this is some sort of test of strength, or if there's going to be a little bit more complexity here with the characters and the storylines, because maybe she is grappling with the fact that she knows Ganondorf is evil, but she has to accomplish her duty. She has to serve her king. And Rauru is like, no, I am your king. He comes out and says, follow me, come and help. Make the world a better place, save the world. He is going to kill everybody. And then this clip at the end with her face, this is just a very emotional shot, and that makes me think that this sage is going to have a lot more emotional depth to it because of their relationship to Ganondorf, because of where the storyline is heading, and just because of the Gerudo people in general. I think she is going to be a big part of this game, the storyline, and just how that relationship with Ganondorf looks like is going to tell us a lot about what these people think of him and how they want to move forward. Then we see a clip of Rauru and the Hylians, and the constructs are next to the Hylians, which is even more proof that the constructs are still on their side. So that makes me think that that clip earlier with Minoru defeating those constructs was probably just some sort of sparring. But this also is interesting because Rauru's face looks a little bit pained here, and we can see in the background the Hylian leading on the other Hylian, and the constructs are all right behind the Hylian. So this dark environment, this red illuminating environment that looks like it's in the middle of a battlefield, makes me think that maybe the constructs could also just be like capturing these Hylians, and Rauru is going to have to decide whether or not to sacrifice them or sacrifice himself or something weird like that, but he looks a little bit too discouraged for this just to be some random scene. This next clip here, we see Rauru and Sonya walking side by side, and it looks like one of those heavy is the head that wears the crown type scenes in which Rauru looks a little bit like he's just doing his duty. Sonya is there to help keep him upright and just support him. This scene also reminds me of the cliff that they were standing on right before they attacked the Molduga, and Zelda is right there as well, so it could be very possible this is right before or after that attack. We then get a brief look at Sonya and Zelda together in the garden with the grass behind them in a very beautiful area. This is probably the mother figure that Zelda wishes that she has always had, and their connection is going to be just gut-wrenching to see how that all unfolds. It's going to be so sad, and I bet you Zelda really finds a connection with Sonya, and Sonya really adores Zelda. But this scene is also indicative of Zelda trying to unlock those time powers that Sonya has, and they know that she does have them because she has that royal bloodline, and so she has more powers to unlock, and Sonya is probably here holding her hands, trying to teach her how to in fact use those powers. Then we get a clip of Rauru here looking even more depressed than ever, and with the environment here, I can almost certainly say this is the scene in which he is looking down at Sonya's grave. He feels that weight more than ever. He knows what he's going to have to do, and Zelda is about to come in and say, hey, you're going to die. I saw your arm on Ganondorf. You're going to die, and he is going to have to come to terms with that, and maybe we will see that internal conflict with him fighting off that anger and just doing what he needs to do for the Kingdom of Hyrule. But something tells me we're going to see even more of the duties of a king and how much Rauru has on his big shoulders. Then the screen fades to black, and we get to see the logo for the Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment game. We don't get any sort of release date, which is very unfortunate, but it is still slated for winter, as the announcer in this Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase showed us, and is probably still going to be something around December or January. I am putting my bets on January, February for next year. And then we get a little after credit scene here where we see this interesting place that looks like it's down in the depths, looks like it's similar to the construct factory in which we saw with Minoru in Tears of the Kingdom. We see this green circle here, and I don't remember seeing anything like this in Tears of the Kingdom. Then we see right here in the background what looks to be one of those logos in which Link would always put Rauru's hand on to either unlock a shrine or to just activate a light root in the depths. So this looks like it's actually activated by the hand, and then we see something very, very interesting. But before that, listen to this music. Listen to the clip in the background. What is being played here when this scene is happening? Did you catch that? Did you catch that? Let me play it one more time. That, my friends, is Fi's theme from Skyward Sword, the Fi that is living within the Master Sword and all across every single Zelda iteration. And here is the actual song from Skyward Sword itself. Right after Fi's theme, we then see another look at this construct, but this construct is very different from Minoru's construct. It has hands, and that is very unlike the Minoru construct that we see in Tears of the Kingdom. It also is a bit more skinny and is much smaller, and the light that illuminates within it looks a little bit different than Minoru's, and it makes me think that this has something to do somehow, some way with Link. Can you really imagine a game where we do not have Link in it and it has Zelda in it? I truly can't. I cannot imagine that, and for somehow, some way, I wonder if this is Link. Or if this is the hero that I was talking about earlier, with that costume that Link gets in Tears of the Kingdom that appears to be what I would assume is Rauru and Sonya's son, because they have to have continued that bloodline somehow for Zelda and King Rome Bosphoramus to exist. So I wonder if this is either somehow the hero and he died and he is being used in this construct, and maybe that is why Minoru created these constructs to begin with, because she was constructing them for Rauru's son to put his spirit within the construct even though his body perished, and then she ended up using it herself because she died in Tears of the Kingdom. I don't know, but it is very, very interesting, and I wonder, it could be Link. It very well could be Link, and somehow Fi, through the power of the sword and through power of whatever in the world she can do is somehow transferring Link's consciousness to the past into this construct. It's a very odd description, very, very odd, and I don't think that they would want to do that, because why wouldn't Link then remember what happened to Zelda and tell anyone in Tears of the Kingdom? I don't know, maybe his memory got erased, maybe after the construct was defeated, they didn't end up using it, or maybe this is some sort of storyline deviation. Maybe they're doing a very similar thing with Age of Calamity, because they said Age of Calamity was canonical, and they really are going out of their way to say that this game is also canonical. Now, the biggest pushback to Age of the Calamity was the storyline deviation from Breath of the Wild, and even though you could technically still say that it is canon, and Nintendo has confirmed it is canon just in a different timeline, I don't think that they want to go that same route here with Age of Imprisonment, because that was the biggest backlash. But at the same time, the graphics were also pretty bad in Age of Calamity, and that was another backlash that people were really upset about, and so I could definitely see them deviating from the storyline and this being some sort of Link that never really has to do anything in the present because he just goes back to the past and they defeat Ganon. I don't know, but what makes that really exciting is that we don't know. We have no clue what they're going to do. In Age of Calamity, we were all like, man, this is really sad, we don't know what's going to happen, but we think they're all going to die, and now we have no clue what is going to go down. We have no idea if they're going to deviate from the storyline, if we're going to get some sort of unique story here, or if they're going to follow exactly up to Tears of the Kingdom's storyline, and the game just ends with Zelda becoming a dragon. But now that we've broken down that trailer and given out a bunch of theories for what it could possibly mean, I want to talk a little bit about my frustrations with this game and what is going on with its release date and Nintendo's overall conviction in telling us what is happening with this game. We saw this initially in the Switch 2 Direct, and that was amazing. It was a part of the third-party segment in which Koei Tecmo and those guys came out and said, hey, we're working on this. Aonuma came out and talked about it a little bit, and I am excited to play it, of course, and even then they said back it is coming in winter, and now we just get another confirmation of it coming in winter again. And that is very frustrating, because you would think by now, it is August at this point, that people would know what is going on with this game and when it is coming out, and we don't have a lot of release dates for a lot of first-party games, so maybe that's a video all on its own. But why in the world would they not tell us at least a month for when this game is coming? You could at least just say like December or January. You don't have to commit to a date yet, and maybe they just don't want to do that at all. Maybe they don't want to commit to a date because they know it's not quite done yet. Maybe they're still working on some of the mechanics or some of the storyline, but I honestly think they're going to be very similar to Age of Calamity, just with the Tears of the Kingdom spin on it, so it shouldn't be as big of a deal as they seem to be making it. It's very frustrating to see them not really communicate with us in these times. It doesn't have to be in a Nintendo Direct like today, it just has to be in some sort of trailer or some sort of tweet. Just tell us, when is this game coming out? Imagine we have to wait until a September or November Direct in which they tell us a little bit more about this. That would be very frustrating to have to wait that long to find a date, or maybe it wouldn't even be in that at all. I'm sure there's going to be another trailer and another Direct at some point, because they said at the end, wait for more information on this game, and that would be very, very annoying if they just drop an overview trailer and then drop a release date trailer out of nowhere like they did with Dragon Drive. But maybe that's just me complaining because I want to know exactly when I'm going to be able to play this game and get to deep dive into it. But let me know down in the comments, what do you think about all this? Was there anything I missed? Was there something that you thought was just totally glaring, or any opinions that you think I have about this that is wrong? What do you think about all of the release date shenanigans going on? Do you think that this game might get delayed? What's going on with it? Let me know all that and more down in the comments below. Make sure you like and subscribe today's video if you enjoyed the content, and click that notification bell to know exactly when all of my videos release. Consider joining my membership program to support me as an individual creator and get a bunch of cool perks for yourself, such as early access to all of my videos. Click on the left side of your screen if you want to see what I think is going to be the future of Zelda, and click on the right side of your screen if you want to see my playlist of every single Zelda video I have ever made. Thank you once more for making it to the end. You have yourself a phenomenal day. This has been Ray's Nintendo Talk. I have been Ray, and I will see you all in the next video.